Hi, today we're going to talk about connecting a VTUG Festo Valve terminal, the VTUG-10, this one right here, which is, it has this VAEM-PT-8 mounted on top of it, and the CTEU-EP, which is an Ethernet IP gateway to iPort, that's mounted on top of that. And then we're connected to Ethernet IP back to a Rockwell PLC. I'm actually going to show you the PLC that's shown here, but I'm going to create a CompactLogix PLC project while I'm showing you the video. And you typically have a managed switch when you have Ethernet IP network, so that's a standard managed switch, and that's what we're going to do. So first thing with any Ethernet IP network is you need the EDS file. So to get the EDS file for the Festo Festo CTEU-EP, you go to the festo.com, www.festo.com, put in your country and everything like that. I'll let you get to here, and then you click on the support/downloads. Come up to the top here, type in your bus node name or the part number itself. Click that, go to software, and at this point, this is the EDS file that I want, or we want. You'll save that and then unzip it somewhere. Okay, so we now have the EDS file, and now I'm going to start up a bare project. So I have chosen a 7069L30 ERM CompactLogix PLC today. There's a couple different ways you can do this. Go to EDS hardware installation tool, which is typically on the menu. That's what I'm going to show you. You can also go to the start menu and just type in EDS, and it'll come up with the EDS hardware installation tool, same thing. So you click on this, you ignore the stupid admin rights problems. Finally wait, and it comes up. Register an EDS file. Register, I like to do the directory, look in the subfolders. This is where I unzipped it, so hit the next button. There's the EDS file. I've already registered, but I'll register it again. Why not? And finish. So now we have an EDS file registered. So at this point, the next step is to wire in to configure your CTEU that's sitting on the VTUG. So we're just working our way backwards here. So close this here, minimize this here, minimize that, and the wiring I found was a little bit hard to find. So this is the wiring. I'm just going to leave this up for a minute here. And basically, you've got a power connector and M12 on here, and you need to hook this up or wire this to your to constant power as well as load power, so that if you have an e-stop or something, you can drop your load power, which is pretty traditional in the world of automotive and other industries. So that's what you have to do for wiring on that. Then the dip switches. So on the face of the CTEU, you've got dip switches right here, which is considered for IP address, and then you've got the communication type. The CTEU is also capable of Modbus, but we're just doing Ethernet IP today. We're doing diagnostics status as well. I don't see any point in not doing diagnostics. And then this fail state, I always leave it as resetting to 0. But you can do that based on your project. So this, everything here that I've highlighted in green here is how I have the module configured. So I actually have a 192.168.1.11. I'm using the diagnostic status. Okay. The next step is to determine that it's on the network. So you can download from the website again this Festo Field Device tool right here. When you download and install this, then you get this piece of software right here, which is right there. And when you do a scan, you will find the CTEU-EP. At least that's what you would expect to do. You can also go to the home page right from here. So the firmware that I'm using is also important. It's always important to have the latest and greatest firmware. This FFT software here, if you go to firmware, this here will update the firmware, get it from the web, and download it. And just gonna let this finish here. Okay, so it's gone out and done its job here and determined that this is the latest and greatest files here. So I can just close this now. Everything else is up to date. I've just switched views here to graphic view. So this is what it's connected to. The way of updating the firmware is to simply go to firmware, reboot, and because the firmware files are installed, it will connect, get ready. You select the EDS, not the EDS file, the firmware file, and then you'll say download. I'm going to cancel that because I don't need to do a firmware. I know for sure it's up to date. The Axis should reboot here. Okay, so the Axis is back up and running again. And we're at 111 here. So the next thing you want to determine is what your I/O size is. So you can simply go to the home page, and my default browser I don't like, which is Internet Explorer. It's Google Chrome I like, so I'm just going to type in the address that it took me to on the other browser here. The way to do that manually is just type in 192.168.1.11, which is the IP address of the device. It comes through here, and it shows you here that there's 2 bytes for diagnostic status, and there's 2 bytes for outputs. Can't do anything here. What you can do is get some diagnostics information. Don't know how valuable that is. Okay, so regardless, so right now we know that it's 2 bytes in, 2 bytes out. That's the important thing here. So I'm just going to close this and close this and go back to the Logix program here. And what we want to do here is we want to add a new module. And because we've added this EDS file already, I can just type in CTEU, and the device will come up here. Click on create, give it a name. I give it the CTEU, which with the next layer here, which is a VAEM-PT, and then there's a VTUG. In this case, it's 11, and then we're going to get to the important part of the configuration here, which is just like this, and there's defaults embedded into here. We want to select the exact I/O size, and like I said before, it's 2 bytes in, 2 bytes out. Hit OK. Yes. And looking at the RPI, 10 milliseconds, that's about normal. And this configuration here, we don't need to do anything with. And defaults. So hit OK, close. Now, if I was to download this right now, basically I'd be up and running with the I/O count. When you add this module here, it basically adds based on what we've just done there. There's a configuration word due to the EDS file, and there is a status of the connection itself. There is input data, and there is output data. Now, this particular thing is only an 8-point module. That's because that's how it works. So what this does not do for you is it does not label what the status inputs are. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to quickly in the background here add a description status. Okay, so what I've done here is I've given this a label here. The reason that there's 2 bytes of status and 2 bytes of outputs, yet there's only 8 outputs, is because the CTEU is designed to also sit on another device called a CAPC, and that has 2 ports, 2 I-port terminals. So if this CTEU was sitting on that particular thing, you would have this particular status byte for the one port, and then the second status byte would be for the second port. Same thing with the outputs. The outputs on the first byte here are for channel 1 or port 1 or 0, port 0, and then the next one will be port 1. So that's why there's 2 of everything on this. And same thing here. When you look at the modules here, there's a port 1 and a port 2, they're calling it. So that's why there's a dual of everything. So we've added this. I've added this right here. And what I'm going to do next here is I've just gone and added a routine called status PLC. This is just me adding some bits that I put in every PLC, file, fault log, controller, scan times, and I've got some flashers in here which I'll use later. So I've added that, and the next thing I'm going to do here give it a name here, add this, and this file here is just going to be for status, so I'm just going to paste in some code here. So what I've done here is this connection faulted bit, that's a pretty, it tells you when this is connected or not, so if the terminal is unplugged, this will go or be faulted. And then this one right here, I don't need. This right here, these 8 bits are the bits that we just looked at here. That's the status bits, so these will also tell you, the user, and you can use them however you like, that there are some issues. Gives you status of the valve terminal. And then, okay, what I've done now here is I've added a routine called EthIP outputs. And all we're doing here is, if you go to the controller tags, there's the outputs right here. These are the outputs I'm modifying here in the routine here, and I'm just going to basically, cycle through even and odd outputs. That's the whole purpose of this when I enable this. So the next step is, or the last step would be to add some explicit messages. So the explicit messages. So if you are on the website, so we're back at the website here, and you click on the technical documentation tab for the CTEU, and there's one operating instructions manual. You download that, it'll bring you to this. Okay, so you get this document here, which I've modified myself a little bit here. And basically, it talks about the DIL switches, which we already talked about, status, things like that. This is your go-to document. Maybe it's also a good point to indicate that if the DIL switches are all set to on and you cycle power, then you put the CTEU back to factory default. I've had to do that one time for reasons unknown. Maybe I was doing something I wasn't supposed to. But where we're getting to right here is some explicit messaging. So the CTEU is capable of some explicit messaging. So there's some EthIP objects here. The one that I'm going to concern myself with today is the diagnostics object, or the status. And there's not a whole lot of information about this. I found this stuff in a different document, so I've basically documented it in the code here. Basically, when you have your explicit message here, I'm just cycling it over and over and over again. Don't need that. The configuration, I hope you know how to add a message. You basically add a tag, made it a message tag. You come into here, and the class is 67, so it's class. Instance 1 and 2 refers to the port number. In this case, there's port 1 and 2, but that's only when it's sitting on the CAPC module, so it'll be port 1 all the time. So the instance is 1, and to get to the port status, it's object 5. So attribute 5 will bring in the port status. The communication right here, this right here, you're gonna point it to the VTUG, which is you're pointing it to this right here that you've selected, and now it's going to gather that information over and over again. So the next rung here, what I've shown you here. So I've given that description text right here. The class, the port, and the attribute. Down here, this right here is the destination tag, which is this number here. I'm just putting this here on the rung so that we have a visual on it. And then down here, I'm just doing some indirect addressing so that based on that number that's in there, I'm moving a string to the current port status string. And the description text here, 0 through 10 are the descriptions, and this is what they mean. And what I did here was I populated some messages. If I go to edit here, I just labeled this stuff here. So I'm basically shoving the string in. You don't have to do that. It's up to yourself. I just did it for the sake of showing you what's going on here. So we're basically done. You've of course going to add these routines to the main routine as far as the jump goes here. And I've added this enable outputs here so that if I want to force the outputs in the data table, I can just turn this off so that they're not being acted on here. Okay, so I'm going to save this project. It's basically done. And what I'm going to do now is, I don't have this PLC. I did this for the sake of, a simpler PLC. I'm going to bring in a completed project. Okay, so again, this is a different PLC. I'm not using any safety in here. It's just it's an L71 processor, and this just happens to be what I have here. So I'm gonna go to active. Move this file out of here. Finish with that one. And you pick the PLC, of course. You set the project, and then you do a download. Okay, so we're in run mode now, and let's just check our status. So this particular one has a module here, so I'm getting status on the module itself. So I'm not faulted on my MasterCard here. The CTEU status, I don't have a fault there. I don't have any faults here. And what I'll do here is I just drop the load power. So the load power, it tells me that I have iPort module error. So it's reporting that this module in general has an error, and then the load power is an undervoltage right now, meaning, you dropped an e-stop or something. Turn that back on. What I'll do right now as well is I will remove the Ethernet cable. You'll see that the connection faulted. This bit right here goes on. So it says, hey, we're not connected anymore. You also get the yellow status down here. If you were going into here, it says, connecting module. It says connection request timeout. It won't give you any information because you're not connected. So I'm going to push the cable back in. And now we're back up and running. This yellow should go away in a minute here. Validating faulted. It recovers here. So now we're back to running. This is the module info we have right here. It's in run mode now. There's no more fault. Gives you a status. Tells you the IP address here. And tells you how you have your ports configured. And that's it. So that gives you a little bit of information of the diagnostics. So the other diagnostics, as we showed you earlier, is the explicit messaging. Let's zoom this in a little bit here. So it says device is operational. What can I simulate here? The port unused. Well, I'm not going to be able to simulate anything here because I don't have a way of faulting this out, but you need to trust me, the fact that that actually does work. And then what we can do is come in here and enable the outputs. Turn this on, and you can hear in the background that the outputs are actually clicking back and forth here. And that's it. Project's up and running. If I now toggle this bit here, I can go to the controller tags themselves, and I can, go to monitor tags. I can set my own bits. And I basically turned off all the outputs. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget that the bottom of the video in the text message area will have a link to the source code here, or some sample codes. Okay? Thank you, and have a nice day. And thanks for watching my video.